Most people who walk into a room and instantly sense something is wrong assume they were just born that way. Perceptive, tuned in, naturally gifted at reading people, and that explanation feels comforting because it turns something exhausting into something flattering. But the neuroscience tells a far more complicated story, one that most people who live this experience have never heard, and one that changes everything about how you understand what is actually happening inside your body. Because what gets praised as a social superpower is, for a significant number of people, something else entirely. It is a nervous system that learned to stay on high alert because, at some point in your life, reading a room wasn't just a social skill, it was a survival strategy. And the weight that comes with it, the physical fatigue, the constant environmental scanning, the feeling of absorbing everyone else's emotional weather, doesn't come from being gifted. It comes from a neurological adaptation that was built for a past environment that you are no longer in. You walk into a room and something immediately feels wrong. Nobody is fighting. Nobody has said anything unusual. But somewhere deep in your chest, a quiet alarm is already going off. You've clocked the micro-tension in someone's jaw, the fraction of a second too long before someone laughed, and the subtle way two people are sitting just half an inch farther apart than they were last week. Before you've even taken a seat, your brain has already compiled and filed a full emotional diagnostic report. Most people would call that uncanny, and they are only half right. What looks like insight from the outside carries a silent, exhausting toll on the inside. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why that weight exists, where it came from in your nervous system, and, most importantly, how to finally put some of it down. We are breaking this down into 4 research-backed parts. First, what this experience actually feels like from the inside, the moment-to-moment physical load of absorbing a room. Second, the 3 specific brain networks driving this hypervigilance: the amygdala, the insular cortex, and mirror neurons. Third, the Fawn response, analysis paralysis, and why being hyper-observant secretly prevents true social presence. And fourth, grounded psychological strategies to recalibrate your nervous system, not motivational advice, but real, research-grounded tools. Here at the Behavior Blueprint, the thinker has been tracking this behavioral pattern for a long time. What the peer-reviewed science reveals is that this isn't just about being perceptive. There is a deep survival mechanism operating underneath. Keep that in mind, because everything changes once you see the blueprint behind it. Let's start with what this actually feels like in real time. You step into a space, a family gathering, a work meeting, or a friend's apartment, and within seconds, your brain completes a complex calculation. It scans every face for micro-expressions. It measures the subtle emotional atmosphere against an internal baseline. It notes who isn't making eye contact, whose smile didn't reach their eyes, and whose voice carried a slight edge that contradicted their words. All of this happens automatically, before your conscious mind has even decided to pay attention. And here is the detail most observers miss. To you, it doesn't feel like observation. It feels like absorption. The tension in the room doesn't remain out in the open air. It settles inside your body. You feel it as a tightness in your shoulders, a subtle flutter in your stomach, or a low-grade state of alert that hums beneath whatever task you're trying to perform. You are physically carrying the emotional weather of everyone around you without ever choosing to pick it up. Then the second layer kicks in. Once your brain detects that something is off, it refuses to let it go. It begins searching for causes and solutions. Did I say something wrong? Is this tension directed at me? Should I intervene to fix it? You begin pre-scripting conversations that haven't happened yet, mentally rehearsing exact lines to de-escalate the room if the conflict surfaces. You aren't just reading the room, you are running live high-speed computer simulations on every possible way the room could collapse. And while all of this internal processing is firing off, you are still trying to participate, still trying to laugh at jokes, reply thoughtfully, and hold your thread in the conversation. You are essentially running two heavy cognitive processes simultaneously: the social performance on the surface and the constant environmental threat scan underneath. That is an enormous mental load. Most people running this pattern have done it for so many years that they don't even realize how deeply exhausted they are, because to them, this has always just felt like being aware. So a crucial question arises: when did your brain learn to operate like this? Because people rarely develop this level of environmental scanning out of nowhere. The roots go much deeper into human biology and development. There are three specific neurological systems driving this experience. Understanding how they interact is what transforms vague self-awareness into genuine clarity. The first system is the amygdala, the brain's primary threat detection hub located deep within the temporal lobe. When the amygdala operates at baseline, it keeps you safe from immediate physical danger. But when it becomes hypersensitized, it functions like an overly delicate smoke alarm, triggering an internal stress response even when no threat exists. Clinical neuroscience research shows that hypervigilance in social environments often stems from stress-induced sensitization of the amygdala. If you grew up or spent extended time in an emotionally unpredictable setting, where the atmosphere could shift from calm to explosive without warning, your amygdala learned a simple survival rule: never stop scanning. Studies published in psychiatric literature demonstrate that even brief exposure to chronic emotional unpredictability causes sustained increases in spontaneous amygdala activity, amplifying its reactivity to future stress. The alarm system doesn't just go off when there's danger, it recalibrates to become faster and more sensitive over time. So when you step into an ordinary adult room today, your amygdala is running a high-alert protocol that was originally calibrated to protect you in a past, far less stable environment. The second system is the insular cortex, specifically the anterior insula. This region governs interoception, your nervous system's ability to perceive your internal body states like your heart rate, muscle tension, and gut sensations. Research in cognitive neuroscience reveals that the right anterior insula translates your visceral physical reactions into conscious emotional feeling states. When a subtle shift happens around you, your body registers a microscopic physical change, a subtle chest tightening or heart rate increase. Neuroimaging studies published in Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience confirm that higher anterior insular activity correlates directly with elevated social alertness and anxiety. The more sensitive your interoceptive system is, the faster your body translates subtle room dynamics into physical sensations. This is why reading a room feels less like a logical thought and more like an immediate physical gut feeling, because your insular cortex processes the bodily response milliseconds before your conscious mind forms a complete sentence. The third network consists of your mirror neurons. This system allows humans to build empathy by automatically simulating the expressions, postures, and vocal tones of those around us. In psychology, this phenomenon is known as emotional contagion, the unconscious absorption of another person's emotional state. When operating normally, mirror neurons allow us to feel compassionate and connected. But when paired with an overactive amygdala and a heightened insular cortex, the mirror neuron network acts like a high-power antenna amplifier. You don't just notice intellectually that someone is suppressing anger or hiding distress. Your nervous system generates an immediate internal echo of that exact state inside your own body. And if there are 5 tense people in a room, you are attempting to process 5 conflicting emotional states at the same time. Your brain then uses predictive processing, generating fast expectations about what will happen next to stay ahead of potential conflict. Here is the central truth to realize: none of this is a character flaw. You are not broken. Your nervous system did precisely what it was designed to do. It adapted to keep you safe in an unpredictable environment. The challenge is that your environment changed, but your nervous system's operating system hasn't been updated yet. This hyper-adapted state carries 3 hidden psychological costs that rarely get named. The first cost is what psychologists refer to as the obligation reflex, deeply linked to the Fawn response. When you detect emotional tension building between others, your nervous system doesn't just record it. It feels involuntarily obligated to repair it. You step in as the unasked emotional mediator. You adjust your voice, introduce humor, or soften your posture to diffuse discomfort that was never yours to manage. In past environments, predicting and soothing an adult's emotional shift was a functional safety strategy. But in present adulthood, it leaves you acting as an emotional container for problems you did not create. The second cost is the relentless mental replay that follows social interactions. Long after you leave the room, your brain continues analyzing every detail. Why did they pause for half a second before responding? Did my tone sound dismissive? Because your sensitized nervous system struggles to differentiate between a true social threat and a harmless neutral gesture. It treats every anomaly as critical data, draining hours of cognitive energy on scenarios that require no action. The third and most profound cost is the loss of genuine presence. When you are constantly scanning and managing the room from an internal control tower, you rarely get to simply be in the room. You watch yourself interact rather than experiencing the connection directly. Protection has quietly replaced presence. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you sat in a social space and completely forgot to monitor the atmosphere? When was the last time you allowed yourself to just exist without running a background scan? If that question resonates with your experience, drop a comment below sharing what resonated most. Hearing your stories helps others in the Behavior Blueprint community realize they aren't carrying this pattern alone. So how do we shift a nervous system calibrated for hypervigilance? We don't try to forcibly turn off your perception. Instead, we apply 3 research-grounded strategies that retrain how your brain responds to what it notices. The first strategy is cognitive boundary setting, deliberately uncoupling the act of noticing from the impulse to respond. Right now, your brain fuses these 2 steps together automatically. Sensing discomfort immediately triggers the belief, "I must regulate this." The practice is inserting a deliberate cognitive pause between observation and action. When you detect a mood shift in someone, acknowledge it as neutral data. I notice they seem quiet today. Then consciously stop there. Remind yourself, their internal state is their experience to navigate, not a mandate for me to resolve. By repeatedly catching this moment and choosing non-intervention, you retrain your brain to see that unhandled tension does not equal immediate danger. The second strategy works directly at the body level to recalibrate the insular cortex, interoceptive grounding. When social anxiety signals escalate, the insula becomes hyper-focused on internal racing thoughts and panic spikes. You can interrupt this cycle by shifting your interoceptive attention to stable, neutral physical touchpoints. The firm pressure of your feet resting flat against the floor. the steady physical contact of your back against the chair, the physical sensation of ambient air temperature on your skin. Clinical research shows that anchoring awareness on concrete, non-threatening physical cues provides the insula with a stable reference baseline, reducing the escalation of anticipatory social stress. The third strategy targets your brain's predictive models. Cognitive reframing. Your brain constructs expectations based on historical data. When your threat alarm fires in a social setting, challenge the interpretation by asking for concrete, objective evidence. Is this person's brief response evidence of anger toward me, or simply a sign of their own personal fatigue? Is this silent pause hostile, or is it just a neutral moment of rest? This practice does not deny your perception. Your ability to read micro-cues remains sharp. It simply separates the raw signal from the threat story your past habit attached to it. You learn to observe clearly without assuming responsibility. What looks like a hyper-aware superpower is often just a loyal nervous system that learned to protect you early in life. Your amygdala, insular cortex, and mirror neurons were doing their job. But you are no longer in that past environment. You are allowed to update the system. The goal was never to blindfold your perception or stop understanding people. The goal is to walk into any room, notice what you notice, and still know that you are safe enough to simply belong there, to be both an insightful observer and a peaceful participant in your own life. That is the core mission here at the Behavior Blueprint, helping you understand the hidden mechanics of human behavior so you can navigate life with clarity and calm. If this breakdown resonated with you, stay tuned. Our upcoming blueprint on why some people process everything more deeply explores the exact neurological traits behind sensory processing sensitivity. Be sure to hit subscribe to catch every research-backed guide we publish, and we'll see you in the next blueprint.